The new major patch for City Skylines 2 has had some major effects on my Massachusetts-inspired Easthaven County build. So today we're gonna try to alleviate the worst traffic I have ever seen in this game. But we're also gonna add some cool assets from the all-new Leisure Venues DLC, while also trying to see if we can alleviate an explosion in crime levels throughout the county. And speaking of crime, I've got some pretty crazy news to share with you, so let's just roll the clip. Authorities have now confirmed that the body found 2 days ago at this Victoria Beach estate belongs to Seamus Callahan, the CEO and majority stakeholder of Mass Capital. Law enforcement officials have ruled out natural causes and say foul play suspected, but declined to comment any further. Just a week ago, Mr. Callahan stood before the press celebrating the approval of Mass Capital's latest and most ambitious project yet, an ultra-luxury condo tower at 81 Hamilton Street, a controversial redevelopment that divided opinion in Fort John's City Council. But now, with Callahan's sudden death, Mass Capital has suspended all operations indefinitely. Locals in Victoria Beach say they saw nothing unusual in the days leading up to the incident, but an anonymous tip reported a black SUV making repeated rounds on this very street late at night just 1 week ago. A coincidence or something much bigger? Investigators remain tight-lipped, but speculation is growing and we'll keep you updated as more details emerge. This was Ken Rosenberg, Fort John Broadcasting. Back to you, Cecilia. I don't even know what's going on, but yeah. Welcome to Easthaven County, guys.
Whoa! Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic gotta say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitting for it, cause you all cap like. Hold up. I shoot my shot, wait, hold up. I'm really about to run this go up. You know it's all net when it go up. Ain't got no other plans, you don't need to understand. Ay, we on overtime, you don't need to understand. Ay, you just show them how to do it when you don't know what to say. Tell me how you plan to win if you plan to play the same. Moving fast, already gone, yeah, but you bringing me back. Try to double cross me, dog, just let me relax. Stop assuming what we doing. Keep it moving, what we doing. Cause it can get dangerous. Cause it can get dangerous.
That Ken Rosenberg dude sounds kinda familiar, I guess. And here I am, just a bro trying to manage a city, get the new patch working, and all this stuff is going on. I wonder if there's a clue between this episode and the previous one. Let me know, I for sure don't know. Anyways, the massive shakeup we're gonna see in traffic today and the 16-fold increase in crime is very much because of some new simulation changes and bug fixes in the new anniversary patch. So the first thing we are gonna do is just hit play and let things start to settle in. So apparently a major population rebalancing act is to be expected, and that has certainly already begun, I can see. But other than that, we can expect some major changes to our economy, especially the combined wealth levels of companies throughout the region, and a host of other things. But as I said, we're just gonna let things play out a bit. We're gonna let these queues form up so that we can start troubleshooting the traffic. But while we wait for that, I think we should get busy with a bit of new developments, because this Leisure Venues pack is absolutely fantastic. So we're gonna start by grabbing one of the new leisure venues under the Parks and Recreation menu. And it's this Dockyard Lounge Park, which I just thought would be perfect for the marina that is still very much in development. And I was kind of thinking, I'm gonna enable Anarchy so you guys can kind of visualize this, and disable snapping. I'm placing it somewhere alongside Laurel Lane here, which we definitely need to rename, so that it kind of protects the like the beach we have here from the marina. It kind of separates things a little bit, and it will look like an old dock or an old pier that used to house industry. So let's just get it placed. Okay, I mean, oh yeah, of course it's flooding. We don't want that. Let's elevate it to the level of this road here. There you go. And then I guess we'll need to remove a few boats, that's for sure. I think we have one over here as well. I can find that in just a second. And I don't think I can bring it any closer to the lane here, to the road network. In fact, I think I'm gonna bring it a bit further so that we don't clip into the corner of the lot here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust the height. Let's see if we can just boost that a little bit. And then I'm just gonna move that a little closer. It doesn't seem like the water damage thingy was permanent, which is great because that would be a terrific start to today's build. Make me look like a complete idiot. But we of course need to do a bit of terraforming here, and we need to provide a proper road access, and we probably need to clean up these props right here. And I'm gonna just pause for a second doing some of these things because I am always a little anxious with doing things with Anarchy enabled and with lots of movage usage while the game is running. That seems to make everything a little more crash prone, although I know that this patch should include quite a few fixes to many of the crash to desktop issues people have been having, but trying not to take any chances here really. And I wonder if I can just lower that a little bit. There you go. Then we're just gonna bring these props in for good measure, bring that a little closer and maybe just elevate them slightly. So before any more detailing, let's just have a little look at this asset. It is beautiful. I love how it's at the same time it's very unique, and yet I can expect this, you know, I can expect to find something like this in Hamburg, in Copenhagen, in many major cities that have active redevelopment going on alongside their dockyards. And I especially like the look of the primary asset here because it really sells the industrial vibe, so it's perfect. You know, realistically, we should have a sort of a key wall here. I was actually thinking of using the boulders, but I think we're just going to do maybe a tiny bit more terraforming and see if it makes sense to add maybe just the pedestrian path as a small quote-unquote key wall. And then maybe I can fit in the boulders anyway, even though they don't necessarily make a ton of sense. If you expected ships to kind of moor, I think is the word. But I'm saying that wrong, I know, alongside this pier. But yeah, let's just get this adjusted. Now, of course, it needs a slightly more custom name, so I've named it the Back Bay Dockyard Lounge Park, which is quite a mouthful, but wait till you see the prices for the sliders and beers here. That's gonna be a totally different mouthful for this hipster place. This also means I have renamed the Inner Bay to Back Bay, and it's all based on this wonderfully informative comment and suggestion, which we're gonna run with and also develop some of this land with, because as the suggestion points out, this would probably have been utilized for something else than recreational space many moons ago, or otherwise have been developed into super expensive condo towers, because this location has to be extremely valuable. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to go with the suggestion, and then we're going to expand the urban fabric, this hipster part of Back Bay, so that it covers this area and at the very least stretches to the intersection between Oak Avenue and Bay Road. So we'll just quickly get rid of the pedestrian pathway here, and I'm gonna fill in some small row houses and warehousey looking commercial assets, maybe a bit of mixed use, probably in a time-lapse format. But before we get there, there's a little change I want to make, because I mean, look, I get that it's winter, it's kind of cold, it's kind of gloomy, we get a bit of rain, but I think the colors are just slightly too gloomy. So we're gonna open up Lumina, and these are my settings if you actually prefer how it looks right now. And then I think what I'm just gonna do while we are in winter time at the very least is bump up the post exposure to around 0.8, and we'll get a bit of extra saturation in there as well. You can see that kind of brings out the color scheme of everything, but especially the grass a little bit. It's a small change, but I think as I zoom out and pan around it, it looks a little better. Let's add in 2 of these small one-way alleys. They have parking on one side as well, and then we'll get cracking with this new area. We should probably connect the avenue here as well. Let's see. We'll grab the parking alley. Gonna use this one. Bring that down, and then an old trick by turning one side into a key, reducing the amount of parking. Goodness, look at some of these assets from the venues, the leisure venues pack. This one here featuring a bar, cocktails, all that good stuff. It is the perfect fit. It even has a slightly industrial vibe, especially the red brick building on the side. Oh, beautiful, beautiful stuff. We've got even more we can use. A tea salon. I guess we could use that as well, maybe. You know, maybe we could kind of place that over here so that you've got, you know, you can kind of look out and see all the boats and stuff. I think we are gonna make room for this one as well. So the scope here is changing a little bit. We're using a bit more than I had initially planned, but when things look this nice, yeah, we should just use it, right? I think we're just going to remove the key here and just keep parking on both sides, because that's gonna create that connection that we want. And look at this steakhouse asset. Ooh, we're gonna have to fit that down here as well. They're just too perfect. And you know, hipster jokes aside, I probably look halfway hipster most of the time myself in real life. I understand why areas like these are desirable. I mean, why they get so expensive. You have a beautiful waterfront, a beach, amenities, park life. You're right next to the historic downtown, and it's just all about the good vibes down here. It's turning into such a nice area in this back bay. And maybe you remember from the main marina episode that I tried to use some props to kind of open up the backside here and add a bit more seating to this signature building, and it didn't work out perfectly. But I think I've found a replacement. It doesn't quite have the density. It has a bit of parking, but it's artisanal ice cream. And, you know, that's something I can sacrifice a bit of density for. And I think the actual asset is going to be a fantastic fit. So my idea is to kind of have this maybe sit on a plateau of a sort. So we're actually going to align it to Bay Road, just like we're going to move it even closer, I think. Something like this. And then we'll need to create this plateau. We might be able to pull that off with, you know, utilizing the vanilla pavement path here. So let's just see if this is going to work. Actually, we will use this custom one with the road builder because the footprint it has is even smaller. And I'm going to freeform play. Whoops. We're going to go with straight segments. We're going to freeform place this and see if we can get this to work. And you might not even know what I'm trying to, so that's perfect. My idea is to use it as a key, so I'm going to align that to the height of the building. We're going to make sure that's aligned to this segment of Bay Road. And then hopefully if I turn it into a key, I will be able to retain the terraforming slightly. No. It would probably be aligned towards the bay for a better view. Yeah. Anyways, it was a good time. It was worth the effort, I guess. Let's just grab that again and get it angled the correct way. Yes, and then we'll just turn this segment of Bay Road into a key. Alright, so I did end up detailing this little part, even though that wasn't really the plan, but I'm happy I did, and it's just turned into such a fantastic, diverse neighborhood, and it's such a small one, you know, but it really has a different vibe from the rest of the entire county, which I really do enjoy. So, I mean, I would probably enjoy living in Back Bay. I imagine it's pretty expensive. It might not look like much, but yeah, it's probably super expensive. But it's time to finally pause the game and take a look at the traffic situation. Alright, so getting a bit of an overview, it seems like much of the super heavy traffic alongside Queen's Passage has now cleaned up a little bit, which is always nice. As well as this western stretch of the MR28, the Massachusetts Route 28 as well. But as we pan out the camera, you can kind of see the mess down here, and it's really, really bad. It was even worse than this at one point, I think, but the whole thing is just completely queued up, and I have identified a few issues. So we've got a ton of traffic, as you guys can see, trying to make the right turn here to get to whatever business near downtown Chowder Bay they may have. And I think the main reason I can spot is that the other ramp to get into Chowder Bay is all the way down here. There really isn't like a natural point where you can get off this stretch of Route 28. So I think one of the first things we could do is add an additional off-ramp, some kind of easy access to this avenue that kind of cuts through Chowder Bay. I also have quite a bit of traffic, and I'm just using the Harley family's hatchback as an example, that wants to either go to Moonlight Bay or alternatively cross the bridge to West Point. And it's a massive pain if you want to do this currently, because you're pretty much, as you guys can see, the hatchback, the planned route here is it's just a massive massive additional stretch you have to cut through to actually get here. So we're gonna need some kind of some kind of ramp that maybe branches off from around this point and then goes underneath the above this stretch and connects up to this lane here. Now, I know some of you would probably advocate that by now we're gonna demolish this entire mess and just get a high capacity interchange in place that's gonna work from day one. But I actually kind of like this playstyle. I like the narrative that Easthaven County is just outgrowing its 1970s highway network at a rapid pace. And the county is just desperately adding on and off ramps and extra lanes in hopes of keeping up. And it's all gonna turn into a mess, but I think it looks a little more organic that way. So let's try this crazy new off-ramp so that we can get easy access to the city of West Point. Yeah. We're gonna grab the one-lane, one-way highway. We're gonna use the symbol curve for like the first step here. And we're not really looking to elevate the segment all that much. We'll just do that, and then we're gonna go for the continues, and we're gonna start our elevation journey. Don't worry, Move It is going to save the day eventually, of course, but I want to get it as right as I can, I guess, from the very start. That is going to make things a little easier. So let's drop down to 7.5, because we still need to get above this segment here. Oh man, can we start lowering this to 5? We're gonna try. Yes, and then let's see if we can move down to 0 or ground level rather. And we'll just do an ugly connection here because I think we'll need to do an upgrade anyways. Try and adhere to a bit of lane maths. And now I guess Move It kind of comes into play. That did take a bit of tweaking, but I think we got there in the end. I mean, I think one of the easier approaches would be maybe to connect right here. It's almost as if the current road layout is begging for it. Let's just go for the regular symbol curve. I'm trying to make things more fancy than they need be, I think. And we'll just need the 5 meter clearance. is more than sufficient for the small suburban road down below. And I'm thinking we might just need to upgrade this to a one-way segment, and then the two-way reasoning for the alley is just to serve some of the houses here. And we're actually, I think we're actually gonna bring that in a one-way configuration all the way down here. I think that's fine, because it's primarily this road that's being used to connect to the roundabout and the Moonlight Bay district, so things should be fine. So I just made the ramp a little shorter, and I think that looks a little better. This should work fairly fine. Another issue I'm seeing is that there's a ton of traffic being forced into this small 3-lane stretch here. And some of it is moving southwards to some of these massive areas here. And others are turning left as soon as they can, so that they can enter the downtown Chowder Bay area. So I think we might be able to branch off another off-ramp from this off-ramp and maybe connect to this area down here, because that is also a decent road to get into, to get directly into Chowder Bay. It's worth a try. 25%. Let's just do it so that we can kind of assess how that will. What a... Huh? Ivy Nichols, there are so many things wrong with this scene here. Yeah, let's see if we can try and make this look a little better. It's gonna be such a mess. Let's try this. Let's just try this. We'll see if we can find a spot down here to branch right underneath the overpass. And we can actually get to ground level now with a decent gradient. Perfect. We'll connect to this one, and then we can also make things even easier and just connect directly to this part as well. Just like that. Now that is beautiful. I'm playing Planet Coaster now. Okay, I think we've managed without having any of the pillars poke through or ruining any of the existing engineering here. And can you imagine buying this house in 1970 for $8,000 and still becoming a millionaire the day you sell it? Yeah, owned millennials. And right before we hit play, I'm wondering if a roundabout would actually improve this whole thing. I think we're gonna give it a go and just check if that's gonna be the case. I'm hopeful because there is a ton of traffic entering to this kind of bottleneck, and that's gonna continue even with the new off-ramps. I think this is gonna alleviate some. I think we're gonna see some activity here, but I don't think it's gonna take like the brunt of it. So let's hit play and see what happens. And we might even move in here and bump up the simulation speed to 8 and maybe just fly around. Okay, so we're seeing some use of this new system. I haven't seen any use of this small addition though, just yet. But things seem to be flowing a little better. There's still quite a queue, of course, traffic accidents. Is this because the road is in terrible condition? No. No, it's actually quite good. So that's just, you know, unfortunate, I guess. And it's, oh man, I don't know how service or emergency vehicles are even gonna get here to clean this up. But yeah, let's let things run for a little more. Let's have a look down here as well. So this is a super mess, and it's also because my link connection set up from the previous episode for some reason haven't been saved. So I'm just gonna pause, remove all connections, and then we're gonna change this up, because you guys are meant to branch into a 2-lane segment, and then this needs to branch in here. Let's see if that makes any difference. I mean, it did despawn a couple of cars, so I guess that helps. But it feels kind of cheaty. We're gonna give this a little time, and then there is another troublesome spot up here, and this is actually less dependent on like the patch shakeup, because I am fully aware that that's what's causing like the majority of the current traffic issues. This off-ramp here has just been getting more and more busy, and it makes sense. Apparently, you know, if you want to reach downtown, then instead of having to move to Strawberry Street, you probably want to make a right very early on so that you can get on Mill Street and make a left at one of the free options here. And of course, as a result, the whole thing is just completely clogged up. So I'm hopeful that if we reduce the walkability a little bit by getting rid of this crossing here, and then we just do a couple of simple upgrades, then that might just be what we need. I wonder if this one is actually necessary to really get full bang for the buck here. So on the surface we don't have the room, but if I enable Anarchy and then I disable snapping so that I can try and like manually align this, then we've got one more trick up our sleeve to make this work. So there's a hitch I don't want to encroach too much on, so I think we're gonna go for this look. Then we'll move into road services, and we are gonna just create some wide sidewalks, getting rid of the parking. And you know, that pretty much leaves enough space, but if we're being a little more detail oriented, we could just get rid of this hitch. And I'm hopeful this is gonna kind of alleviate this situation a little bit. I don't actually know how many want to make the left turn alongside Elk Street right at this intersection, but I guess if we just speed things up, we'll know in just a second. Okay, so most cars are going straight and a few are turning right. Oh, there we go. We've got a few queued up to go left now. So things are looking, you know, they're looking all right, but let's just see. We can kind of taper this, I think, so that we have the 3 lanes here, then we'll have an async with 2 lanes here, and then we'll just keep this normal piece. So to do this, we'll just grab the this version of the async road, and we'll just get that added in. And it doesn't look like we need actual changes to the highway segment. I might just add some keys. I think that would be that'd be fitting here. And maybe we'll upgrade this to a 2-lane configuration now that we've got a 3 lanes to play with as we transition to the road. So let's just do that, but we're going to disallow left turns. Although these cheeky, but what? Why would you even go here if you're... okay, never mind. Sometimes the traffic is, yeah, a little wonky, I'd say. And by the looks of it, Fort John, traffic-wise, is pretty much in the clear now with that little fix here. Let's move back here to see. So there's constant traffic jams here. I guess we could add extra lanes, of course, but I guess I should say that I like the heavy traffic look. I don't want to solve or alleviate traffic completely at all, because I think that would kind of remove some of the immersion and some of the realism of the place. So it's not like I think this needs an immediate fix, but of course, when like the main highway cutting through is completely backed up, that's not going to be great. But that isn't the case anymore. Things are looking pretty good. It's all very much in the clear. Let's take a look at Cape Autumn's stretch of the MR28 as well. I don't expect any issues out here because, as you guys know, it's there's not even 1,000 people out here, so it's very much just a commuter highway leading north to Boston. And yeah, no issues. So I think we can jump to another issue, and I'm gonna show you guys a pretty wild statistic. So this is the evolution in the crime rate across Easthaven County, and that is pretty that is pretty incredible. Now apparently crime was pretty much just not really working as intended before the patch, so that makes sense now, and it was terribly easy to manage beforehand. So I'm really happy we got this change. It's gonna feel much more immersive. But let's have an actual look and see what areas we can serve and which are served fairly well. So the Chowder Bay PD is serving Chowder Bay, as the name might imply, and that seems to be working fairly well. Some of the outskirts are a little more crime-ridden than otherwise. Fort John is actually looking pretty alright. We've got the Fort John, the FJPD 1st Precinct Station here, and then we've got a second precinct station out in Queens Cape. And I think, yeah, West Point, the VPD has its own downtown station serving this island, and that's working fairly well as well, although it's also serving Cape Autumn. And those, you know, the outskirts of Cape Autumn are a little hard to reach by now. They've got 2 cruisers out here patrolling, so it's not terrible. But Cape Rose is pretty terrible, I guess, which is pretty bad. We just had a major crime out here happen, so it looks like it would take a while for the cruisers to actually reach this area. Now, I'm a little scared of just plopping down a police station, because in the previous episode, when we did public investments, some of them turned out to be wildly expensive, because there is definitely some levels of corruption here in Easthaven County that we haven't been able to handle just yet, or haven't even been able to fully investigate. I got a police station out here, that's for sure, but I don't know about the cost. Maybe out here we already have the Cape Rose Medical Clinic, and we've got a bit of space. So let's see if we can find a cheap, small police station. It tells me, the contractors tell me, that it's 100K. We'll see about that. No, it was actually significantly more expensive. How wonderful is that? Anyways, our police coverage is very much district dependent, so we're just gonna name this the Cape Rose Local Police Department. Just for now. It's kind of lazy, I know, but the cars are making their way, and let's just get all of this covered up. It's quite a large area, not necessarily in terms of population, but the actual footprint and the sprawl of it is pretty big. So we'll see how well they handle this implementation. So quite a bit of time has now passed, and we have 2 pretty interesting developments. The first one is that if we grab the police info view, it definitely looks like the addition of this local police department has had a positive impact localized here at Cape Rose. But at the same time, the average crime probability, like the general crime rate, has actually just continued to rise. Of course, those 2 can be true at the same time. It looks like it might be capping off at around 20, whatever that means. But I don't want to place any more police stations before I know just how big of an issue this is. So if there's something I learned from watching The Wire, it is that we can always approve some overtime. So if we move into services and police and administration, then if I increase the budget, it's going to affect how many police cars are currently in use and the general efficiency. So let's bump some overtime up. We have plenty of cash to burn at this point in time, and we'll see if this has a positive impact. I noticed 2 things. One is that the incineration plant we placed in the previous episode is definitely doing its job. We still have a few notifications of garbage pileups, but it's not the same at all, and there are basically none in Fort John, including the hospital. The second thing is that we still have quite a few traffic jams throughout the county. And I don't think the immediate shakeup by the patch is the cause anymore. I think too much time has passed by now. So the main problem area here in Fort John is definitely this crossing between the highway segment and Queen's Passage. If I can avoid it, I don't want to make the footprint, or rather the width of Queen's Passage, any wider here. Because generally the roads and avenues, they're not too wide in Fort John, primarily due to the age of the city. But maybe just adding more lanes. Yeah, I know it's kind of a meme, but I mean, it's kind of worth a shot, isn't it? So if we go async with 3 lanes moving out to Queenscape in the entire stretch here, and then maybe we just remove these crossings, and we, let's see, we disallow a left turn so that this is just a continuous segment and it isn't broken up by an intersection. It already looks like there's a bit more flow through here. It looks decent so far. We're gonna do the very same thing right over here, and it seems like things kind of clear up at around this stretch. Although honestly, I kind of built this relatively quickly, so it's not like it's super detailed or I put too much thinking into the road layout. But we're definitely, we are seeing a ton of traffic move in from this off ramp, so we might have to do something about that. I want to start with upgrading it, adding in an extra lane, just in case that we have a sizable amount of traffic that doesn't want to turn left here, but wants to move, towards the port, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like all of them wanna move left, so that's good. Now I've got a pretty interesting situation going on right here, where people get on the off-ramp, and then they immediately get on this on-ramp and back to Route 28. So my hunch is that it's because it's actually slightly shorter distance. I mean, I'm hoping the calculations are a little more complex than that, because there is like, a traffic light here. Either way, I think I'm gonna disallow moving straight through here. I mean, that should kind of work, I guess. It's a bit of a rough approach, but if it works, then, I guess it's worth it. So we've now made it all the way to March. We're officially in spring. It's 8 degrees and the region, or rather the county, is completely green again. So that's a wonderful sight on a mostly sunny day right now. Most of the simulation changes following the patch seems to have settled in now, and there's been some pretty dramatic changes. So our entire economy, at least in terms of current income trends, have reshuffled quite a bit, and it's still a bit jumpy. So who knows where it settles. But let's look at some statistics to really see some of the major impacts. We're gonna start with the amount of companies surviving the patch. So it seems that for industry and offices, they made it through relatively unscarred. But when we look at commercial companies, there's definitely been a decline. There's been at least 50 bankruptcies, I'd say. And if we look at trade, then maybe that is the cause of some of it, because there's definitely been a bit of a reshuffling in how trade is handled. And we now have trade deficits in many of the things we do not produce or source locally, which I think makes a lot of sense. The crime statistic is also looking pretty dramatic. It seems like we topped off at around 20 right when we started implementing better crime protection, or crime fighting measures rather, in Cape Rose. And we've seen a pretty steady decline, so that's nice. Now, company wealth is a pretty big one. It's become apparent that it's much harder for companies in the new patch to generate profits and just continue upgrading and up-leveling without issue, because that is definitely not the case anymore. I don't know how this is going to look 6 months from now, because this is a very dramatic change. But I think it's a positive one. It definitely seems like there are some parts of the simulation that have become a little harder, traffic management being one obvious one, as well as crime. But it also seems that we're not flooded in wealth and money the same way as before. I also want to do a quick follow-up on the education investments we did in the previous episode. We can definitely see a clear cutoff here. This brown line tracks the amount of uneducated citizens, and that has seen a pretty decent decrease as we massively expanded the elementary school system. We didn't do many other changes besides providing a high school. So these 3 are pretty stable, while the amount of poorly educated citizens, which I assume are people that only have an elementary school degree, has risen quite a bit. So it's a positive change, but there's definitely more work to be done here. Now I'm gonna be cutting this episode a little short, and the reason is that I've seen an uptick in the frequency of crashes, unfortunately, as the patch has progressed. I think the game has crashed 20 times while trying to record this episode. So I'm gonna get things wrapped up so that I can start some pretty heavy debugging and figure out if there's like a conflict with mods or what it might be, because I want to get that solved so that there's at least a bit more stability, because it's not usually something I actually battle with all that much. But before we wrap up, I just want to do a little build down here, because we've got this office park that we've had for the longest time. And since we've had pretty decent office demand and we still have a pretty high unemployment rate, I figure we're going to use some of the land on either side of the Cape Rose Express to just kind of expand this area a little bit. And I like building these office parks, these suburban office parks, because they're oh so American and they're quite easy to build and actually make them sort of nice looking. I mean in that depressing suburban way, but you know, you catch my drift. So I think one easy approach would be to actually just, turn some of these roads into parking lot roads, and then getting just a bit of office placed on either side, because we do have like an open space here where we've got a few trees. We can remove those, of course, and then we can place a few structures right here. So we're gonna manually place these because that's the most fun and it makes the most sense, I think. I am wondering if I can fit in like a small high-rise, because you actually do see this in some suburban office parks, that the actual density can be, well, it's not very dense, but there can be some like at least mid-rises poking through, like these ones from the Chinese regen pack. They're actually perfect. I didn't plan for this, but if these are the first ones popping up, and then I'm gonna use them. And I imagine it looks like there's a height difference as like the main change between the levels, which is absolutely perfect. So let's just see if we can squeeze in a tall quote-unquote version right here, and then maybe grab 2 of the level 2 versions and just of course flip them, so we ensure that we've got it's got the road connection, of course, and we'll just place, I think we'll just place 2 of those. And then something I think we should spend a little time detailing here is just having maybe some sort of unique surface special to this build that just kind of ties it all up, because since the architecture is pretty much the exact same, you'd imagine the 3 of these buildings to be built all at once by the same developer as part of one project. So I'm gonna add a tiny bit more parking, and then we're going to get to the surface coverage. I guess we need a few pavement pedestrian paths as well for it to really look good. But for now, we're actually just gonna make an off-ramp here as well, connecting up to this parking. Yank. There we go. We'll get rid of a few trees, and then I guess we'll be downgrading or upgrading depending on your feelings towards surface parking, and then we'll be adding a little segment down here as well. And we probably need to disable some snapping and just freeform this one. Let's just get a few of these paths in. They're also great because they make it super easy to add in the surfaces we'll need to add in to make this area look better and as like one single build. And I think we'll even get a crossing, yes, to kind of break up the parking here. But I don't want to be at too much of an angle, because you can see the textures, they're starting to kind of play games with us when we do that. So I'm gonna see if I can just go relatively straight through and just branch out on the other side. There's not much of a connection to be made here, right? To the highway there. So we'll just go for, I guess, something like this, and then we'll remove one of these crossings. Might as well just connect this up while we're at it. Okay, let's see. We'll get rid of this crossing right here, but we might add... we're gonna add a few, and we've got everything covered now. So to keep this simple while still making it look nice, I think we can just expand on the existing surfaces, and then we'll just fill in one of the manicured grass surfaces when we're done. So let's see, we'll just, not have it be as square, because that's, I mean, slightly boring, right? So if we just do some sort of changes to the surfaces of these buildings, then I'm sure that's gonna look, that's just gonna look much better. And they don't encroach upon the actual path, and I kind of like that. I think that's fine. But you might want to use a custom surface from the from PDX mods that does. That's up to you, of course. I think I spoke too soon there. If we add in a bit of contrast, like with this red decal, and we kind of stitch these buildings together, I think that's gonna look. I think that's gonna look even better. Yes, so that's like a plaza connecting the two, and we can add some tables and stuff. And we'll just add some kind of tie-in with the this red surface to the high-rise building as well. So it seems like 2 software companies have set up shop and a company that produces media. But that's it. I'm gonna get busy with some debugging. I am looking so forward to that, I can tell you all. Thank you guys so much for watching, all the support and feedback. I'm very curious to hear if any of you have picked up on any of the clues so far. And as always, if you've got a suggestion for what you'd like to see next in Easthaven County, let me know. See you all in the next one. Goodbye.